After being a son-in-law of a wealthy family for 6 years, I took the initiative to give up my wife's white moonlight. But before leaving, the housekeeper called me and said, "The young master is making a big fuss now, crying and looking for his father." Hearing this, I couldn't help but sneer. He will soon have a new father. Why is he still looking for me? Please tell your daughter that I wish her a happy marriage with her sweetheart. Who knew that just a few years after the divorce, Moo King appeared in front of me again. Her eyes were red with tears, and she only asked me to look at her again. After hanging up the housekeeper's phone, I took out the phone card and threw it into the trash can, leaving it in this city along with those past events. The plane landed smoothly 2 hours after takeoff, took a bus, then a bus, and finally walked 2 kilometers. When it was dark, I finally got home. My elderly parents didn't know that I was divorced. When they saw me, they were particularly surprised and looked at me happily. After a long conversation, my parents remembered to ask, "Do you plan to stay long this time?" I could only tell them truthfully that I was divorced and the child would go to the Moo family. After listening, my father puffed on his pipe and my mother rubbed her eyes, choking and saying that I had a miserable life. The hardships and wounds along the way healed in an instant. After a few days at home, the village gossiped constantly, and the flattering faces when they learned that I married into a wealthy family were completely different. Within 2 days, another major event distracted their attention. The daughter-in-law of the Yu family in the east of the village finally gave birth to a son after giving birth to 3 daughters in a row. The family was poor and had to sell their 4-year-old daughter to a blind man in his 40s as a child bride. The 2 older girls surrounded the youngest, and the 3 of them were exactly the same thin. The 4-year-old girl had no idea what she was about to face. Her big watery eyes looked at the crowd curiously and timidly, which reminded me of my son Mu Yifeng. They were the same age of 4 or 5, but their situations were very different. My mother's eyes turned red again. On the way back to the city, she kept shouting, "What a sin!" I pondered for a long time, and after dinner I called my parents and said, "I have no plans to remarry for the time being, so don't plan blind dates for me. I plan to bring the 3rd girl from Lao Yu's family back home, save her life, and take care of me in the future." My parents sighed and tried to persuade me for a long time, but when they saw that I had made up my mind, they gave up. The next day, I asked the village chief to be a witness, and I spent 5,000 yuan to buy a letter of severance signed by Lao Yu. 5,000 yuan, the money for a toy can change a person's fate. How can this world be fair or unfair? Children who have been sold are not suitable to stay in the village, so I moved to the city with Xiao Di. My parents had no objection to this and changed her name to Li Bao. I asked someone to find a connection and finally got Bao registered in my family. Bao is very sweet, which makes my parents very happy. They keep praising Bao is worthy of being the baby of our Li family. The 4-year-old girl would also raise her head and ask me, "Why do you want to be my father?" I raised my hand to scratch her nose, "Because Dad wanted a daughter very much, and I just met you." This is called fate. At this time, she would hug my arm obediently. "Thank you for being my father." I felt very distressed. She should understand the hardships in the past. In fact, after Mu Yifeng, I mentioned that I wanted another daughter. Mu King didn't want it, so I didn't force it. After arriving in the city, I returned to my old job as an interior designer, busy with drawing, busy running construction sites, and busy taking care of children. Bauer has gradually grown into a big girl and is about to enter elementary school. Looking at her smiling face, I have been grateful for my decision countless times. Now I should say to her, "Thank you for being my daughter." It makes me understand that I am not a failure in being a father. With the world I have seen in previous years, my designs are better than others. More and more people come to me, and I have gradually become a well-known designer. That day, my friend told me that there was a villa that needed to be renovated and asked me if I had time. Bao had just started summer vacation, and I wanted to take her and my parents out for a trip, so I didn't make an appointment. But my friend was very determined and kept emphasizing, "Big customer, money is not a problem. They specifically asked you to design it." When I heard the budget, I thought, well, it's indeed a bit too much, and the profit from this order should be enough for the whole family to go out for a trip. I took Bao to the agreed private room, but the client hadn't come yet. Only my friend was there. Dad, I drank a little too much water. I need to go to the bathroom. I just sat down and raised my butt again. Do you want Dad to accompany you? Bao shook her head and went out with her ponytail. I had been to this restaurant several times and damn familiar with it, so I sat back and talked to my friend about this project. Big customer back from out of town. As a result, Bao didn't come back after chatting for more than half an hour. There was a noise outside the door. I pushed the door open and saw two kids fighting in the corridor. I recognized Bao at a glance and hurried over to pull them apart. Whose kid is this? How could he hit someone? After pulling them apart, I looked around Bao. His clothes and hair were a little messy, and there were to read marks on his neck. Bao's eyes were sparkling with tears, and he felt very aggrieved. Dad, he hit me first. I felt distressed, so I stood up with Bao in my arms, ready to teach the culprit a lesson. I was stunned at first glance. Although the person in front of me was a little older, I recognized that it was Mu Yifeng. At this time, he also had tears in his eyes, was in a mess, and stood there with clenched fists. When he saw me looking at him, he immediately took his short legs and ran over to hug my thighs. Dad, woohoo, Dad, I finally found you. The surprised eyes of the people around me stayed on me for a long time, and the familiar manager came over to drive those people away. Bao looked at me blankly and said timidly, Dad. His tone was confused and uneasy. I patted Bao's back to comfort him, then turned to Mu Yifeng and said, You got the wrong person. Then I motioned to my friend standing stupidly beside me to pull him away. Mu Yifeng refused to let go, twisting his body and struggling. Dad, you are my dad, Liang. Don't you want me any more? He started to cry at the end. My friend looked at me with gossipy eyes. Just as I was about to ask the manager to check the parents, steps down from the stairs. Yang, why are you crying? A crisp female voice sounded, and the familiar smell of perfume came with the wind. I looked up at the figure wearing a white dress, noble and elegant. It was my ex-wife, Mu Qingwan. I didn't think it was necessary to greet her, so I didn't say anything. My friend next to me was the first to greet her, Ms. Mu, you are finally here. The familiar look in these words made me feel a little bit of the truth. The big customer, rich man from other places, asked for me by name, and it turned out to be an old friend. Mu Yifeng's support came, and naturally he threw his arms and burst into tears, complaining that I not only didn't recognize him, but also hugged a wild girl. He hugged my neck tightly and said nothing. I know them too well, and the words they said were more unpleasant than the last. I touched Bao's head and handed her to my friend, who was standing stupidly beside me. Bao, go play with Uncle Zhu first. Dad will come to pick you up home later. There were tears in her eyes, and she was so sensible that it made people feel distressed. I couldn't bear to see it, so I kissed her forehead and promised again and again that I would come to pick her up. As soon as Bao left, Mu Qingwan looked at me and said in a mocking tone, You don't care about your own child, but you are very attentive to others. Mu Yifeng also ran over and hugged my thighs, calling Dad in a soft voice. I ignored Mu Yifeng on my lap and turned to look at Mu Qingwan, whispering, If you don't like me, can't I get married and have another child? Mu Qingwan subconsciously retorted, You are not married. I checked. The girl was picked up. So, that's it. I was wondering why Mu Yifeng is so good at fighting, and he just happened to have a fight with Bao. But so what? So, what if I didn't remarry? The beginning of Mu Qingwan and I was very much like the prince and Cinderella, except that our identities were reversed. I was born in the countryside with no one to rely on, and I was admitted to a top university with my own efforts. I heard that decorating can make money, so I studied interior design in college. I accompanied the master to measure the house for a graduation internship. Coincidentally, it was Mu Qingwan's new house, her father's 22nd birthday gift to her. When we first met, Mu Qingwan was in a dazzling red dress, standing in the sun and smiling and greeting me. The young girl exuded a vigorous light, and I was from two different worlds from me who was struggling for a living. An unbridgeable gap stood between us from the first meeting. I thought we didn't have much in common, but Mu Qingwan came to inspect so frequently that the master noticed something was wrong, so he only sent me to supervise the construction period. Mo King Wan would drag me out to slack off every now and then. She could often find many interesting unfun places, such as high-end shopping malls, roadside stalls, and quiet parks. She didn't look like a rich lady. No one would refuse such a dazzling son, and I was no exception. I felt inferior for my love, but I was also obsessed with her fiery appearance. At that time, in order to be worthy of her, I often stayed up all night to study the design styles of major architects. I wanted to make some achievements in the field I was familiar with. Wu Qingwang was really good. She noticed my inferiority complex and introduced many friends to me for design, and she didn't let them tell me. She even took the initiative to confess. She took 99 steps towards me. I couldn't find a reason to refuse, nor did I want to find one. The relationship between the two lasted for a year, and her parents finally found out. We got married as we wished, with the condition that I would marry into the family, and the child would have the surname Mu. Only after entering their circle did I realize how difficult love is in a wealthy family. I thought we would be an exception. When Mu Kingwon heard my question, she was speechless for a moment. She was unusually reserved and lowered her head to grab the hem of her skirt. I turned my head away from her and didn't want to waste time with her. Take Mu Yifeng back. I won't take over your house. No, the father and son said at the same time. Mu Yifeng looked at Mu Qingwan with pleading eyes. Mu Qingwan said, Mu Yifeng has been crying and wants to find you. I came to you because he pestered me. The young master of the Mu family has always been like this. He has everything he wants, but what does this have to do with me? Why is he looking for me? Are you still disliking my poor English speaking, or do you want me to take the 10th grade piano certificate to prove myself? But doesn't your Uncle G have all these things? Looking down at the pair of eyes that are very similar to mine, I asked word by word. Mu Yifeng was not used to me like this. He let go of my legs in fear and ran backwards to Mu Qingwan. The mother and the child fled in panic. I shouldn't have done that. It was too petty, but I felt particularly happy. I had cherished these two people in my heart. I knew that marrying Mu Qingwan was too high, so after marriage I gave up interior design and went to help Mu's. The words, giving away money, son-in-law, Phoenix man, have always been with me. From the initial anger to the final silence, I became hard-hearted and no longer paid attention to the voices from the outside world. During her pregnancy, I worked hard to study recipes, just so that she could eat more comfortably. In the first 2 months after Xu Yifeng was born, I didn't let Mu Qingwan hold him once. Changing diapers, feeding milk powder, and coaxing him to sleep were all rotated between me and the confinement nanny. Even her confinement meals were made by myself because I didn't trust outsiders. If conditions permit, I even want to give birth to this child for her. Mu Yifeng also stuck to me, asking me to coax him to sleep, feeding him milk and telling him stories. Mu Qingwan also loved me. She would remember my birthday, sympathize with my hard work, and hug me and say, when did she change? It was probably when Mu Yifeng went to kindergarten at the age of 3 and heard something. It might also be when Mu Qingwan burst into tears one afternoon when she was watching the financial news. I worked nonstop every day, so busy that I wanted to split myself into 4 halves. Until a parent-teacher meeting, I especially asked the housekeeper to customize a suit for me solemnly. When I left, Mu Yifeng said confidently, I don't want you to be my dad. You are too useless. I want Uncle Jia Yang to be my dad. In a trance, I recalled the content of the financial news that day. It turned out that Jia Yang, the second son of Ji's group, returned to China. Jia Yang, from the name, I was like a joke. Who is Mu Yifeng's Yang in memory of? I didn't ask. Thinking back carefully, all this has been traced. From boiling water to calm, how could I not notice such a conspicuous change? At first, I just thought that she hadn't adjusted her mentality after giving birth, so I would be more considerate to her, report my whereabouts when I go out, share breakfast and lunch with her, pay attention to her at home, and I would pour her a glass of water, taking care of her in every possible way. But Mu Qingwan's response to me was just a frown that got deeper and deeper. Don't send it. I'm so busy every day. How can I have time to read your nonsense? Can you stop hanging around in front of me? It's annoying. Why are you asking me where I am? Are you checking up on me? I think people will get tired of each other after being married for a long time, so I kept comforting myself in my heart. Don't care as a man, it's his duty to coax his wife. But I carefully prepared a surprise for the wedding anniversary, flowers, candlelight dinner, cake. Moo King once stood in the dark, impatient. You only know how to do something fancy if you have this time. You might as well learn horse riding, golf, and improve yourself. Look at you like a housewife. I stood there in a daze holding the cake, thousands of swords piercing my chest, as if falling into an ice cellar. Time, what a luxurious word. Since getting married, I have been in charge of most of the company's affairs, and I have to take care of my mother and daughter when I go home. I wanted to smile but couldn't. Before I could digest the thousands of tons of hurt by Mu Qingwan, my son Mu Yifeng dealt another heavy blow. Only then did I understand that it was not me who was bad, but that a better person had returned. Mu Yifeng did not leave and was even brought to my studio by a friend. Brother Li, Miss Mu left the young master and left, and I don't know where to find her. I didn't make things difficult for him, as he didn't know about my past. Han stood obediently at the door, very reserved, and changed his willful appearance in the past. Bao came out from behind me, pointed at his nose and scolded, "Damn kid, what are you doing here? We don't welcome you." Mu Yifeng didn't respond, but came over and grabbed my clothes, looking pitiful. Dad, how can this little brat act so well?" Bao rolled his eyes and couldn't believe it. Mu Qingwan's move was very good. As his father, even if he said many unpleasant things back then, I couldn't ignore it, so I had to keep him. But the young master of the Mu family can't stay with me forever. The two children began to compete for favor, rushing to bring me water, rushing to let me feed them, and both asked me to tell them stories before going to bed. When I took Bao out, Mu Yifeng would come over and hold my other hand. Bao rushed over and pulled him away. "This is my father. You are not allowed to hold his hand. Go find someone else." At this time, he would blink and look at me, lonely and pitiful. It was strange. I thought I would be soft-hearted, but I didn't. Instead, I was worried that Bao would become sensitive and inferior because of his appearance. "Bao, why don't you like him?" I braided Bao's hair, which was a pigtail that she liked very much. Bao stopped picking her fingers and said indignantly, "Because he dislikes you." I turned her around. "Bao, how do you know?" "Grandma said that, and she also told me to treat you well, so as not to be another ungrateful little wolf." That was after the parent-teacher meeting. After He Yifeng said it, Mu Qingwan scolded him, and for the first time she looked at me with guilt in her eyes. I immediately deceived myself again. She still loved me. But she went out more and more frequently, and sometimes she brought Mu Yifeng with her. At first, when she came back to see me, her eyes were a little evasive, but later she calmed down a lot. I asked Mu Qingwan who she was going out to see, and Mu Qingwan said it was the brother she grew up with. But Mu Yifeng said, "She doesn't let me call her uncle, she only lets me call her uncle." Mu Qingwan was impatient with my questioning and asked me sarcastically if I wanted to have dinner with her. I shook my head and refused. I could tell whether it was a real invitation or a false politeness. I thought she was just meeting her childhood friend, and I forced myself not to care. It's just a few meals. We even have a child, so there's no need to worry so much. Men should be more generous. But everyone is comparing me with Ji Yang. At first, Mu Yifeng would be very happy when he came back and would pull me to share. "Dad, we went horseback riding today." "Dad, we went to see an oil painting exhibition today." Later, he would just look at me coldly. "You can't even play the piano, you're useless." "Why are you asking? You're not good at golf. What's there to ask? You're from the village, so unfashionable." How can I have such an unfashionable father like you, as expected of the mother and son? The words they spoke were equally cold. Even if I escaped to the company, I still couldn't escape Ji Yan. I heard the female employees chatting in the tea room, and then I realized that Mu Qingwan had brought Ji Yang to visit the company many times. Wow, the man that President Mu brought is so handsome, a real domineering president. Yes, he and President Mu are a perfect match. I heard that they were childhood sweethearts, which makes it even better. I sat on the rooftop for a whole day that day, and my hands were shaking a little at the end of the cigarette. Thinking about my marriage and the whistling wind, can I really bear this cuckold? The sky was clear, but I couldn't seem to see the road in front of me. My mood was not right, and my parents felt it through the phone. I didn't know how to comfort them, so they came to find me from afar. The two elderly people were illiterate and had never left the city in their lives, but they went all the way for me, an unfilial person, on foot, by bus, by public transportation, and on green trains. When they appeared downstairs with the company, I was surprised and happy. Looking at these two hunched figures, I ran over quickly and cried on my mother's shoulders. At that moment, I was more filled with guilt. They had given birth to me and raised me, and now they have endured too much. Even though I have sent back a lot of money over the years, they don't care about that. After placing my parents in the hotel, I called Mu King one and said humbly, "My parents are here and want to have a meal together." After so many years of marriage, the two sides have only met once at the wedding. Mu King one agreed, but half an hour before the meal, she said she couldn't come. "My friend has an emergency. Let's do it tomorrow. I will treat my uncle and aunt to dinner tomorrow." There was not even a trace of guilt in the tone of the notification. I called the housekeeper again and asked Mu Yifeng to answer the phone and asked him if he was willing to come for dinner. He said, "Uncle Ji Yang called me and my mother to dinner today. I don't want to eat the nasty food you cooked." During the meal, you only talk about boring rural life, unlike the interesting stories told by Uncle G, which are not interesting at all. After hanging up the phone, I smoked a cigarette in the empty corridor. Turning my head, my mother covered me and smoked a cigarette in the empty corridor. Turning my head, my mother was standing in the corridor, covering her mouth with tears. As I expected, Wu King one showed up and bought a house next to my studio, so I could see Bao whenever I went in undoubt. Every time I saw her, Bao was so scared that he hid in my arms. Bao dared to challenge Mi Feng, but he didn't have the courage to confront his mother. I picked up Bao, walked past them, and prepared to go into the house. "Brother Yang, are you really not going to see me?" Mu King One's slightly trembling voice sounded. This long-lost name. Now think about it. Is this name really for me? She looked sad, and there was no trace of time on her face, as if we had just met. "Please don't come again, Miss Mu." Mu King Wan, stop talking. It's disgusting. I turned around and interrupted her. Mu King Wan was shocked for a while. Tears welled up in her eyes, and it was obvious that she was surprised by my attitude. She should think that as long as she made a pinky promise, I would still be the same dog licker as before. How is it possible to see each other again? I thought she would leave in 2 days, but she was extremely perseverant and sent some food over every few days. Some of the dishes were not well presented, but some were exquisite. I guess the ones that were not good looking were probably made by her. She sat aside stiffly. "You are too tired now. You should eat something good to replenish yourself. Otherwise, how can your body bear it?" I ignored her, turned around and went out and took the takeaway I ordered. She didn't feel embarrassed and turned around to please Bao again. I ignored her. I didn't dare to throw it in front of her. After she left, I turned around and threw the gift out the door. It was really annoying to finally restore peaceful life and be interrupted by two inexplicable people. I asked them to leave again and again with a bad tone and impatient attitude. As a result, I don't know how this rich girl changed her temper and became as sticky as a sticky candy. Several customers called and asked me if I wanted to find a stepmother for Bao. I don't know who was too talkative, but the words were passed to my parents. When I took Bao home after visiting the construction site, my parents were standing at the door with large on small bags. When Bao saw the two of them, he shook me off and ran into their arms. "Hurry up, let Grandma see if the little monkey has grown taller. Haha, baby, if you get fatter, Grandpa won't be able to hold you." Amidst the laughter, I welcomed them in. I just bought this studio last year. It is a two-story structure. The first floor is the office and the second floor is the living area. My mother was busy putting the dishes she brought into the refrigerator. I walked over and pretended to ask casually, "Why are you here?" The old lady glared at her. "Why don't you send Bao back to play? Seeing that the holiday is almost over, you have to force us to come and see it ourselves." I smiled and begged for mercy. Since they didn't want to mention it, I didn't ask any more questions. I haven't seen the mother and son of the Mu family for 2 days. I thought they had left, and I was just relieved when the doorbell rang again. Bao and I looked at each other and we tacitly didn't get up. The doorbell kept ringing, and my mother looked at me with a meaningful look, so I had to go over to open the door. The waiters came in one after another with trays of food, and we were stunned. Hey, who ordered it, mister? This is what Miss Mu ordered. After the last waiter served the dishes, Mu King-won appeared at the door with Li Feng. She looked past me at my parents with an apologetic look in her eyes. Mom, Dad, Uncle, Aunt, today's meal is my treat. My mother was unusually calm. She looked at me first and nodded. In that case, then you can come in and eat together. The mother and son came in, and Mu Yifeng called Grandpa and Grandma obediently. My father nodded as a greeting, and my mother sighed and responded. After this meal, the most embarrassed should be the mother and son. After the meal, I went to wash the dishes, and I caught a glimpse of my mother calling Mu King-won to the second floor. What was there for them to talk about? I didn't understand. I didn't see Bao around, so I quickly hid in the garden to smoke. I was hospitalized for being too hard the year before last. Since then, the little girl has been strictly controlled and asked me to quit smoking. Just after I lit up the cigarette, I heard someone on the phone at the foot of the wall. It was Mu King-won, who sounded rather impatient. Please don't call me again, okay? When I married Li Yang, I still had feelings for you, and I did some wrong things, but later on, we were obviously not happy together. When I loved you, you were better than him. Now that I don't love you anymore, you can't compare to him. With these past events, I quietly finished a cigarette. Coincidentally, the cigarette was finished and the phone call was over. I extinguished the cigarette and Mu King-won heard the noise and looked at me. She was a little embarrassed, swallowed her saliva and asked, "Did you hear everything?" I nodded and didn't ask any more questions. Now I was more curious about another thing. What did my mother say to you? Mu King-won didn't expect me to ask this, and it seemed a little difficult to say. After a while, she said, Auntie said that you are much happier now than when you were married to me. I don't want you to be rich. I just want you to be happy. So she asked me to stay away from you. It was almost what I thought. My mother was a gentle and decent person, and she wouldn't tear her face. Even if I'd beaten, scolded Mu King-won, who had humbled herself, it would not vent the anger of Li Yang, who had suffered so much injustice that year. I nodded as a greeting and walked out, but was stopped by Mu King-won. Brother Yang, don't you have anything to say to me? Her tone was uneasy, and she was trying to be nice to me. Huh? I didn't even turn my head and strode forward. Just like what my mother said, I hope you stay away from me. It was after my parents left that year that I thought about winning back Mu King-won. Adulthood sweethearts can't resist the gift from heaven. Otherwise, Mu King-won wouldn't have married me. As a man, I should take the initiative. I cheered myself up, booked Mu King-won's favorite French restaurant, and ordered flowers. But Mu King-won didn't come that day. I called her, and she just said casually, "I forgot," which shattered my week's preparation. I was very angry, but when her friend called me, I still got up and went to the club to pick her up, who was drunk. What happened next was even more glitch. I listened to the childhood love story of Mu King-won and Zhang outside the private room. If you ask me, Li Yang is much better than Zhi Yang. He holds you in his hands every day, and he almost worships you. Why are you still entangled with Zhi Yang? But Zhi Yang and I grew up together. If he hadn't been sent abroad, he would be the one accompanying me now. Mu King-won burst into tears. I'm impressed by your love-brave mind. Wake up. If he really loves you, would he still go abroad? Yes, yes, don't you know this too? Why did you find Li Yan again? Another girl echoed. I found Li Yang because he looked a little like Ji Yang, and even their names were very similar. How could a stand-in replace him? Stand-in? All the luck I had before completely dissipated at this moment. Looking back at those thoughts in the past, I wanted to laugh 3 times. The clown turned out to be me. It was also on this day that I finally understood why Mu King-won's love was so passionate. It turned out that there was someone else hidden in this love. I turned around and left. I returned home and sat on the ground all night, with cigarette but scattered all over the ground. In the smoke, the road ahead gradually became clear. The wealth brought by this marriage was not what I wanted. The passion that I was infatuated with at the beginning had long been returned to its original owner. When it was dawn, Mu King-won had not returned yet, and the voice of the housekeeper calling Mu Yifeng to school came from next door. It's time for me to go back to where I belong. My parents are going to take Bao back to the countryside to live for a few days. I packed her bags and told her, don't be too wild when you go home. Be careful of strangers. After the Liu couple sold Bao that year, they sold their two daughters one after another and moved out of the village early. I didn't know about this at the time. When I rushed back, my mother said it was too late. The two girls were taken away early in the morning. Bao leaned close to my mouth and frowned. Dad, don't smoke secretly anymore. If you do that again, I will complain to Grandma. Oh, and those two bad guys, stay away if they come again. Call Grandma if you have any problems, okay? I promised her again and again, and she let me go and followed her grandparents, looking back every few steps. I have also received two big orders recently, a large flat in a villa. The budget is very high and the design fee is also considerable. I am really a little worried about the such suckers. In order to prevent it from being another favor from Mu Qingwan, I specially asked the client to meet. An elderly couple and a newlywed couple are both locals, and the property certificate is correct, so I was relieved. Since the last time I met Mu Qingwan, the mother and son disappeared again. I am finally tired of this drama of chasing my husband. My life is fulfilling and busy. There are accidents in the ordinary. When I took the newlyweds to the building materials city to look at tiles, we were hit by a motorcycle that suddenly appeared. It was not serious, just a fracture. The other party was very positive, apologizing and talking about compensation. The young lady made a phone call in front of me. Sister Zhao Mu, brother Yang, was hit by a car. It's quite serious. He is in the ICU. Come quickly. After hanging up the phone, she turned her head and looked at me on the bed with an innocent smile. Sister Mu Qingwan is my cousin's friend. By the way, I don't know if you have met my cousin Yishan. I have seen her and I remember that it was the girl who said in the box that night that Mu Qingwan was a love-brained girl. This world is really small and they still can't escape this favor. Mu Qingwan came quickly unrushed into the ward wailing. Seeing that I was safe and sound, the cry on my lips was stuck in my throat and I couldn't shout it out for a long time. I glanced up and down and fell on my plastered leg and my eyes were red again. Dad, woo woo, my legs hurt. Mu Yifeng, who was one step behind, rushed him crying and threw himself on the hospital bed, his face full of anxiety. Both of them stayed in the hospital to take care of me. Even though I told them many times, they were still unwilling to leave. Mu Qingwan asked the hospital to upgrade my room to a VIP single room and added two beds in it to keep me company at night. At night, Mu Yifeng lay in a small ball on the hospital bed, unwilling to sleep for a long time. Dad, we haven't slept together for a long time. Can you tell me a bedtime story? You haven't coaxed me to sleep for a long time. There was a night light on the head of my bed. Through the dim light, Mu Yifeng's eyes were dark and shiny, full of expectations. I shook my head. I promised Bao that I would only tell her bedtime stories. He sat up and retorted loudly, but you are my father. Why are you telling stories to that wild girl? I turned around and looked at him calmly. I don't like the word wild girl. Bao is my daughter. If you call her like that again, don't call me dad. Tears welled up in Mu Yifeng's eyes. He jumped off the bed and ran to Mu Qingwan, hugged her and cried a grieved lie, just like I threw myself into my mother's arms. At that time, I was even more painful than him. Mom, does Dad want me anymore? Well, you said he couldn't want me, but you lied to me. Do I have to be without a father? He used to be my favorite, but not now. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep, and didn't care about the mother and son anymore. The next day, Mu Qingwan was the only one in the ward, and she was on the phone. It seemed that Mu Yifeng should be sent back. After seeing me wake up, she hung up the phone, came up to me, and smiled on her haggard face. Brother Yang, are you awake? Are you hungry? I sighed and waved my hand to signal her to sit over. She was stunned for a moment, then she was overjoyed and sat down beside the bed with anticipation. I thought for a moment, looked into her eyes and said, you should go back. My mother will be here this afternoon. Thank you for taking care of me these 2 days. Wu Qingwan was stunned and a little bit unbelievable. I have done so much. Brother Yang, you still won't forgive me, I asked back. Why don't you and Ji Yang get together after the divorce? Things that were unacceptable back then, I can now speak calmly. I, the substitute, have withdrawn so tactfully. Didn't you get married with Bai Guang? Mu Qingwan clutched the quilt on the bed with her fingers and remained silent. I answered for her. You should have been together. And then you found that Bai Guang was not as good at serving people as an old woman like me, so you were not used to it. That's not the case. Although the words were a rebuttal, her face showed guilt and anxiety, and the answer was clear. Tears fell from her eyes, and she held my hand and shook her head. No, Brother Yang, I love you. It was just a mistake I made in a moment of confusion. Brother Yang, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I pulled her fingers apart one by one and finally raised my hand to wipe away the tears on her face. Don't cry. It's really ugly to cry. Don't come to me in the future. I'm not playing hard to get, nor am I testing you again and again. I just really don't love you anymore. Let me go, Mu Qingwan, and let yourself go. You and Jia Yang can't go back to the past, and now you and Li Yang can't go back. The fingers that I had pried apart were clenched back again, and the back of my hand was a little white. Finally, she lay on the hospital bed and sobbed in pain. Wu Qingwan left, her fiery red dress swaying in the wind. She stubbornly didn't look back, waved her hand and walked out. Looking at the back, I was a little dazed. In fact, recalling the past, I know that she loved me. We hugged each other at midnight, kissed in the heavy rain, and by the surging river, Mu Qingwan shouted loudly, Mu Qingwan loves Li Yang. My name was particularly clear, over and over again, deafening. Finally, she turned her head to look at me. Her eyes were like stars, like a whirlpool. Mountains, rivers, and seas are all witnesses of us, and that is the look I am sinking for. She is too affectionate with Jia Yang in her heart and can accommodate me. She is also very selfish, only pursuing her own chic, regardless of the life and death of those around her. My mother and Bao rushed to the hospital together, and after finding that the mother and son of the Mu family had left, the old and the young were relieved. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. School started in half a month, and my legs worst, till a little difficult to walk. So my mother took on the responsibility of picking up Bao, and even called my father over, and the two took turns to pick him up. My mother took out the money I had sent back over the years, and I turned around and bought a house next door. Using Bao as an excuse, my parents were finally willing to move out of the village and live with us in the city. I sent my father to take a driver's license test, and I picked up a car for him on the first day he got his license. He excitedly circled the car several times, praising me for being filial. Looking at all this, I was actually somewhat grateful for back then. She gave me love, money, and later freedom. In the blink of an eye, Bauer has grown into a big girl and doesn't need to be picked up from school. My parents were free again and began to think about introducing me to a partner, and even Bao became a lobbyist. She lay on the sofa, chewing an apple with a crunching sound. Why haven't you found a partner yet? If you don't, I will. I threw a pillow at her. If you dare to find a partner, I will break your legs. Belle smiled and hugged the pillow in her arm. After eating the apple, she suddenly said, my eldest sister and second sister contacted me and said they wanted to come and play with me. I stopped drawing and turned to look at her. She confessed, just 2 days ago, they suddenly found Grandma through the village chief, and Grandma told me. In the past few years, the families of the two men were strict and didn't let them contact the outside world. Now one man is dead, and the other man found the mistress, so they let my two sisters out. We haven't moved yet, so they came to our house and said they wanted to see how I am doing. I nodded. Okay, when are you coming? I'll treat everyone to a meal together. Bao jumped up and shouted, long lived Ad, rushed over to hug me, and acted coquette this life for a long time. Comrade Lee, thank you again for being my dad. I rubbed her hair, my heart's softened. Thank you for being my daughter too. Mu Qingwan extra. The first time I met Li Yang, he was wearing a washed-out shirt. The light that day was so magical that I actually saw Ji Yang's appearance in him, 18-year-old Jiang. Later, I stared at him for a long time and his ears turned red, but I didn't find the similarities between the two. At that time, I had just broken up for a month and it happened to be my birthday. Seeing that I was depressed, my parents bought this house as a birthday present and said they hoped I could be happier. Jia Yang and I grew up together. He was 1 year older than me. I thought I could marry Jia Yang, have children, and live happily forever. But he told me that he was going to study abroad. What did you have to study abroad? I couldn't figure it out. After a week of getting drunk in the bar with Yishan, I understood that he was studying in China and couldn't beat his brother, so he wanted to go abroad to get some experience. I despised him in my heart, this coward. But then, because of that vague shadow that looked like him, I started talking about Li Yang. It's funny, they even have the same name. I despise myself in my heart. I am such a bad girl. When I was with Li Yang, I experienced a different kind of love. It turns out that love is not just about bickering every day. It turns out that love is something that is placed at the top of your heart. I am often in a trance. Who do I love? I have been loved by my parents. My family is harmonious, and I have no worries about food and clothing. I have never had any setbacks in my life. Even my husband treats me like a treasure, and we have a very cute son. If there is anyone who is unwilling, it is only my childhood sweetheart, Jian. Especially after Yan Yang came back from kindergarten, he often asked me, why can't his father play the piano? Why can't his father speak 8 foreign languages? Why are other children's fathers so good, but his father can't do anything? Ji Yang knows all these. And he happened to return to China, and when he called me, I was at the amusement park with Yang Yang. The first thing I said when we met was to mock him. Have you finished the blood transfusion? Jiang grinned, but his smile was full of bitterness. Yes, but my wife is gone. He wanted to explain clearly on leave, but Yang Yang suddenly asked him if he could ride a horse. Jiang raised his eyebrows and said in high spirits, of course, your mother's horsemanship was taught by me. Come on, I'll take you to ride a horse. In an instant, I saw the boy from that year riding a bicycle to the downstairs of my house. Miss, come down quickly, you will be late for school, and you won't even have time to copy my homework later. Later I realized that there is no reunion. How can a cracked mirror last? Especially I have seen different scenery. But when I chased after it, I found that the scenery that belonged to me was destroyed by my own hands and would never bloom again. At the age of 35, Jiyoung got married. It was a marriage between aristocratic families, but there was no emotional foundation. After giving the gift money, I turned around and left with Mu Yifeng. I only understand the sense of propriety today, but it's too late.